Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part 3 of how to succeed at reliability-centered maintenance. So if you could just put in the chat, I want to just make sure that you can see and especially hear me. So I'm not... So I'm not just talking to the air. Okay. And you may see something also that says I'm using StreamYard because I'm going live not just on LinkedIn but on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to leave a comment, you have to click that button so I'll know. If you want me to know your name, I'll be able to see your comment no matter what. So okay, yeah. So if you can just let me know if you can. Okay, excellent. Faisal, thank you so much. All right, and put in the chat where you're watching from today. But as I mentioned, this is part 3 about how to succeed at reliability-centered maintenance. Now, we've already talked about 2 parts of them. So let me just do a quick recap of what we have talked about. So when we talk about succeeding at reliability-centered maintenance, we discussed that you have to, number 1, understand what reliability-centered maintenance is, and we have to apply it properly. So we talked about what I call the 3 knots, right? Reliability-centered maintenance is not a maintenance strategy. It is not software, and it is not only the reliability, your only reliability solution. So if you've heard people say, oh, well, if should I do RCM and then maybe I don't have to do other stuff? Well, it solves a lot of problems, but it's not everything, right? For example, you still have, you've still got to do planning and scheduling, and you've still got your tech pubs, and you've got a whole host of other things when it comes to reliability. So it solves a lot of problems, but it doesn't solve everything. Okay, the next thing that we talked about is we went through what the RCM process includes, right? And so it includes 7 steps, and it consists of functions, functional failures, failure modes, and failure effects. And steps 1 through 4 make up the FMEA or the FMEA. Step 5 is failure consequences. And when you look at steps 1 through 4, plus you add step 5, that makes up the FMECA, or the failure modes, effects, and criticality analysis. Then in step 6, we consider proactive maintenance, and that could be condition-based maintenance, scheduled restorations, or another word for that is an overhaul, and scheduled replacements. And step 7, we've got default strategies. Like, for example, maybe we need to augment an operating procedure or add an emergency procedure. So this is reliability-centered maintenance in a nutshell, so to speak. This is the RCM process. So I think, well, let's see, was there one more thing? Oh, yes. Okay. Now, on day 2, what we focused on was scope of analysis. And one thing I wanted to make loud and clear is that you don't need to do RCM on everything, on all of your equipment. So if you've heard, or if your understanding is that if you do RCM, you have to do it on everything, that is just not true. You can choose what you do RCM on, and even on individual pieces of equipment. We talked about a compressor system. If you're going to do RCM on a compressor, maybe you're having trouble with just the electric motor or with the lubrication system. You can just do reliability-centered maintenance on an electric motor. So you can make your RCM, what you do RCM on, as wide or as narrow a scope as you need to achieve your goals. And that's what we talked about a lot yesterday, was about our goals, and that the goal of our analysis drives the scope. Okay, so, all right. So let's go into today, because now that we've covered that we have to make sure we do RCM correctly. And we talked about what the RCM process entails. And we've made it clear that you don't have to do RCM on everything. And it's up to you to decide what the scope of your analysis should be. Now, what it comes down to is proper planning, right? And this goes for a lot of things in life, right? Where we have to plan things properly. There's a saying like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, something like that. And really the same thing goes when it comes to reliability centered maintenance. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to share it full screen. So I think I'm going to go away, and let me know if you can see my screen. I think I should be sharing, so you can just let me know. Okay. So the title of the slide is The Anatomy of a Well-Planned RCM Analysis in a 4.0 World. Now, we've got the term 4.0 world, and that means, where we've now entered the age of IoT, the Industrial Internet of Things, and we've started to hear things like the digital twin. So we see the emergence of a lot of technology in our world. Now, in my opinion, because of that technology, I think that reliability-centered maintenance is even more important than it has ever been, because in order to do anything well or successful, you have to have a solid foundation, right? And that is one of the things that we're going to talk about today, because yes, you have to do RCM technically correct, and you have to make sure your goals and your scope are properly identified. But if you don't plan it right, it's just like anything. You get in your car, well, where are you going to go? If you don't have a destination in mind, well, you're going to end up nowhere, right? Now, I don't think that I'm sharing my screen, so let me see. I'm still new to this StreamYard, so, oh, there we go. Yeah. Someday I'm going to get this right. Okay, here we go. I'm pretty sure I'm sharing now. Okay. So let's talk about the technical planning aspect, or the logistics of starting reliability-centered maintenance. Okay, even before this first step, the first thing I want to say is the gist of the topic today is that if you're wanting to start reliability-centered maintenance, I don't want you to say, okay, that's it. We're just going to start a full-blown RCM program here. I want you to start off small. I want you to start off with a few pilot projects. 1, 2, 3, 2 or 3 pilot projects is ideal. That way you can see what RCM really is all about, what it takes to get it done, and what the results are. Then from there, you can decide for yourself if you want to carry on with reliability-centered maintenance. So the very first thing that is really important is don't go it alone. Now, this isn't a sales pitch, and I've nothing to sell you at the end of this presentation, but I'm telling you from 22 years of experience that all of the steps that you follow require RCM expertise. And it's just like anything in life, right? To do anything well, you've got to have a good understanding, right? Just like learning to drive. I could tell you how to drive, but if you've never been inside a car and behind the wheel, the experience of driving, of actually doing it, is much different than learning it. And RCM is much the same way. So to avoid a lot of wasted time and avoid a lot of mistakes, don't go it alone. Work with someone who knows how to do reliability-centered maintenance on your pilot projects. The second thing is, as I mentioned, start off small. 1, 2, 3 pilot projects. That gives you an idea of what reliability-centered maintenance is all about and what it's going to take to actually implement it. Now, number 3 is you need to select the equipment for your pilot projects. Now, where do you begin? Now, what I don't want you to think is, oh my gosh, now I've got to start, now I have to do a formal criticality analysis on all of my, on across all my plant or on my ship or on my offshore oil platform to try and figure out where I even begin. I mean, you can do that, but an easy place to begin is start with the equipment that is giving you the most pain. Start with the equipment that's costing you the most money, that has the most chronic downtime, where you can get some quick wins, where you can apply the process and see how it can help you identify these areas of failure. Okay, so that's how I would select the pilot projects. And in terms of scope, I would start smaller. You know, if there's a question, well, should we just do this part or should we do the whole thing? Just start with a small part for a pilot project. That will give you an idea of what the process is and what you can achieve from it. Now, you may not want to just do it on maybe say one bearing. You can do RCM on just a bearing, but if you're doing a pilot project, you want something that's a little bit meaty so you can see how the process works. Now, the fourth thing is you want to make sure that you are clear on your goals and your objectives of the analysis, because this is how you're going to measure success. But not just that. What we talked about on day 2 is that the goal of your analysis drives the level at which many of your failure modes are written and how detailed you get inside your RCM analysis, right? So do you just have a gut feel that you know you're doing way too much proactive maintenance? You're over maintaining? Maybe the idea is to develop an optimized maintenance program. Maybe you've got a lot of reactive maintenance. Maybe you're running around from fire to fire and things keep failing and you keep doing maintenance reactively instead of proactively. So maybe that's the goal, is to get out of a reactive mode. You know, maybe you want to improve your reliability or realize the inherent reliability of your equipment. So there can be all sorts of different goals for an RCM analysis. Okay, step 5 is now you establish the scope of your analysis, or you confirm it based upon the goals of your analysis. That allows you to figure out how long each analysis is going to take and how your analysis sessions will be structured. So for example, if once I know exactly what my scope is, an experienced facilitator can take a look at that and estimate how many failure modes the analysis is going to end up with. And then from there, the facilitator can properly figure out about how long that analysis is going to take. Is it going to take 2 days? Is it going to take a week? Is it going to take 2 weeks? So that's another reason why you want to make sure that you've got some experience behind you, helping you with this. Now, when it comes to structuring analyses, let's talk about this for a second. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. So when it comes to structuring the analysis, you know that we're living in a crazy time in our world, right? With world circumstances, and a lot of things are virtual, a lot of things are online. Now, it's not ideal. It's not the best way to do RCM with a team of people, but you can do RCM virtually. I'm mentoring an RCM facilitator right now, and she just finished her first virtual analysis. So she trained her team, her working group virtually, and she facilitated virtually. Now, the way she structured it is they worked for 3 hours a day together. Now, even in a live setting, let's say you need people to participate and they're coming from different parts of the country or different parts of the world, and they assemble. So it would not be cost effective to just do analyses 3 hours a day. You can do analyses 8 hours a day. You can do them 8 hours a day for 2 weeks straight, 5 days a week. You could do analyses for 4 hours a day, 2 weeks straight. You could just do RCM analyses, like I mentioned, 3 hours a day or 3 hours every other day. However you need to do it, however it works within your organization is how you should move forward with it. I think there's a lot out there when it comes to reliability centered maintenance where you have to do this and this and this and this and this. And I think to a large degree, RCM has not been carried out properly, so it gets a bad rap. And one way is the way in which that it's carried out. So you can carry out RCM analyses in many different ways. So you don't have to just stick to one thing. All right, I'm just going to pause and look at the comments and see if there are any comments. Okay, if you've got any questions, you can just feel free to throw them in the chat. Okay, so let's pick back up, and I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. That's not the one I want to share. All right, guys, be patient with me. We got some human error going on here. Why isn't it picking up my PowerPoint? All right, let me try again. There it is. Okay, so let's pick back up where we were. And so we were on how we're going to structure our analyses. The next thing, and this is the gold when it comes to reliability centered maintenance, and that is identifying your working group and your validation team members by name and discipline and obtaining their commitment for participation at least 4 weeks in advance. Now, I know I'm going to fuss with this sharing because I want you to be able to see me, because this is a really important topic. And here we go. We're going to try this one more time. I got it. Okay, this is a super important topic. The way I 100% recommend you do reliability centered maintenance is with a facilitated working group approach. And that is, you assemble a group of equipment experts to do the analysis. Now, here's the key, is that the analysis is led by an RCM facilitator. And the RCM facilitator leads a team of equipment experts. So here's the thing. Remember how I mentioned that if you're going to do reliability centered maintenance, you've got to make sure that you really have a firm grasp of how to implement the principles. Because when you get into the guts of an analysis, if you've got failure modes at too deep a level, too low a level, too detailed, or not detailed enough, when they're too detailed, you can get into serious analysis paralysis, and the analysis can end up taking way longer than it should. So a facilitator is someone who is very well versed in the RCM process, not just RCM principles, but a good RCM facilitator is trained to lead a team of equipment experts. That means being able to deal with all of the varying personalities that a team of people brings, right? How to manage each person, how to look at their expressions and know that something might just be off, how to manage someone who is a real talker, right? And how to not let someone kind of overtake all of the working group members, and how to bring in people who may be a little more quiet, who may be a little timid. So a facilitator knows all of that, but it's the equipment experts who understand the equipment and the operating environment. See, a working group provides two main ingredients. right? For any successful RCM analysis. Number one, the equipment experts have firsthand knowledge of the equipment and the operating environment, right? I mean, in almost every case, there isn't one person who knows everything about a piece of equipment, right? Like, for example, an operator understands the equipment from an operator's perspective, and a maintainer understands the equipment from a maintainer's perspective. Same with engineering, same with logistics, right? Same with the planner. But when you get all of these people assembled around the table at the same time, and they are giving you their knowledge from all these different perspectives, it's absolutely incredible what each of them learns about the piece of equipment, as well as the issues that come to light, because all of these different perspectives have been allowed to assemble in a team environment. Now, I've facilitated a lot of RCM analyses, and I've heard the same thing a lot of times, that it's the first time these team members have been in the room at the same time, carrying out a structured process together. So it's just like, I've done a live in the past where I call the equipment experts the untapped gold in almost any organization, and that's exactly what it is. Our equipment experts have so much knowledge and so much experience, and doing RCM is a way of memorializing or documenting that experience and that knowledge, because the facilitator knows how to get the information from them and knows how to ask the questions and what questions to ask. Okay, if you have any comments or anything, you can just put them right in the chat. Now, this is ever so important because there are a lot of elements that influence our systems, right? It's not just proactive maintenance. It's all this other stuff, the energy that we have to put into our equipment to get the reliability from our equipment that we need, right? We've got, for example, operating procedures and tech pubs and training programs, the physical design of the equipment. We've got supply issues. This is a big one, operational tempo and environment, right? If you use a tow tractor in the United States, that UPS is using in the United States versus one that the military is using in the desert, the operating environment is obviously very different, but also the operational tempo. UPS might be using it 18 hours a day, right? The Navy, the US Navy might only be using it 3 hours a day, but they're using it in a much more severe environment. So it's all of these things influence our system. And when you do RCM the right way with the right people, it can produce way more than just a proactive maintenance plan, right? You can come out with new operating procedures or additions to technical publications, for example. Now, I don't want you to think that in an RCM analysis, you're going to analyze all the tech pubs or you're going to analyze all the operating procedures. You don't do that specifically, but if there is an operating procedure that is maybe vague, or the system is designed in such a way that it's very easy to leave a tool behind after maintenance, those issues come to light. And reliability-centered maintenance allows the facilitator to lead a team to write failure modes, in other words, specific causes of failure causes, to include in the analysis so that issue gets elevated and you can make some decisions about those failure causes and affect some good change. So that's why it is ever so important to have your equipment experts. The other thing, the second important ingredient is to have a strong understanding of the RCM process and its associated principles. Now, the people in your working group, they're not going to have the same level of training as your facilitator, right? A facilitator goes through a whole different level of training than a working group member. A working group member just has to have a strong foundational understanding of RCM. A facilitator has way more experience and knowledge. So the facilitator brings to the table the RCM expertise, and the working group members bring to the table the expertise when it comes to the equipment. And that's why I mentioned don't go it alone. See, that's where your facilitator fits in, because your facilitator brings the RCM expertise. And you can train up a facilitator, someone within your own, one of your own team members. You can have them trained as an RCM facilitator, so you don't have to rely on outside contract facilitation. In fact, that's the best way to institute an RCM program, is to train up your own facilitators, because then that facilitator can help other people to understand what RCM is all about. And of course, that goes a long way in successful implementation. Okay, I'm just looking at, oh, I think you see this. I think you see this silly thing with StreamYard. Okay, I'm going to hide that. That's gone now. Well, that was annoying, wasn't it? Okay. Raid says, it started from the end, from experience of other in the same field of business who succeeded. Yes, Raid, thank you. Okay, yep. So Raid is making the point that, yes, you have to have a roadmap and you have to have the expertise. Okay. I think I'm still sharing. I think I just figured something out, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm looking at my screen on StreamYard, and now I see what you're seeing, which I just figured something out. So that's a dream. So there we go. That's I'm going to digress for a second. I'm going to pause for a second because we talked about this the other day. These are one of the 6 failure patterns where you've got, okay, here, I know I'm split screen here. So here, you've got this failure pattern where the x-axis is age and the y-axis is the conditional probability of failure. So when conditional probability of failure is at its highest, that's called infant mortality, where you've got a greater chance of failure occurring. And so that's me right now using this program called StreamYard. I had that I had that stupid thing on the screen for so long. So I'm sorry about that, but thanks for being with me on this learning curve, because I just learned something really valuable about StreamYard. So, okay, well, there you go. All right, woo-hoo for me. Okay, so now let's see. All right. Okay, so the next thing, so now what you see on the screen is the role of the facilitator, where the facilitator knows how to plan the analysis, facilitate your equipment experts, produce the validation package, facilitate the validation meeting. Because once an RCM analysis is done, there needs to be another set of eyes on it to make sure that the decisions that were made are technically correct, right? And that they're safe and defensible. The facilitator knows how to achieve consensus between the working group and a validation team. Maybe they don't agree on something. Well, if they don't agree, then someone needs to facilitate that and come to some agreement to make sure that we've got safe and defensible decisions. Assembles a presentation summarizing analysis results and briefs the results as required. That's another thing that the facilitator does. So it's super important to have the right people in the analysis. And that goes for the technical experts and the facilitator. Okay, let me see. I'm going to advance the slide now. So now I don't know. I'm still, guys, I'm still on this human error. I'm still on the human error thing. Okay, I got to go back. Here we go. Let me see. I promise you I'm going to figure this out. Okay. So now, okay. The other thing is, the next thing that you need to do is set the dates and the venues of the introductory training course and the analyses and the validation meetings. Okay, so here's where the planning is super important. And I want to stress one thing. So you need to plan training for your working group members and your validation team members. So you have to think ahead, right? Your working group members are the ones who are going to do the analysis with the facilitator. Your validation team is going to come in and make sure that those decisions are safe and technically defensible. And right? So you've got three things to plan: the training, the analysis, and the validation meeting. Now, one of the biggest pitfalls when I hear that RCM isn't done correctly, or RCM fails, or we didn't get the results that we wanted, it's almost always because RCM wasn't carried out properly. And one of the issues is because not everyone on the team was trained properly. It is absolutely essential that everyone involved, your working group members and your validation team members, they have to be trained in reliability-centered maintenance. Now, why? Because, whoops. Okay, here's why. I know, guys, I'm still learning this StreamYard thing. I'll get there. Okay, it is so important because everyone that is included in the analysis and the validation team meeting has to understand the language of reliability-centered maintenance, and they have to understand the philosophy, because the facilitator is going to be asking questions, right? Now, here's another thing. The language of reliability-centered maintenance is also the language of reliability to a very large degree. Many of the basic principles of maintenance and reliability are embodied in the RCM process. Things like P2F intervals and the useful life and hidden failures, right? And failure finding tasks. All of these things, people have to understand that language, right? Because if I'm asking you all those questions, well, I mean, if I say to you, what is a P2F interval? What's the P2F interval? What's the potential failure condition? What is the useful life? Oh, okay. Let's see. Do you have the information that we could figure out what the MTBF, or the mean time between failure, is of that? If you're talking to people and using terms that they don't understand, well, then none of it is going to make sense to them, and they're not going to be able to properly answer the RCM questions. So that's why the last part of the planning process is making sure that you plan your training with the venues and the dates and the analysis itself, and then the validation meeting. Have it all sorted out ahead of time so everyone knows where they need to go and when they need to go. Okay, so the moral of the story is threefold. Start off small and don't go it alone. Work with someone who knows reliability-centered maintenance. I mean, can you go off and do it yourself? Yes, you can, but just like anything in life, when you don't really have a firm understanding, you can really get thrown off the rails, and you think you're going to maybe save some money, and you end up wasting a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time. And time is way more valuable than money. You can always make more money, but you can never make more time. And the third thing is, make sure that you plan everything properly. Make sure that you've got your plan for training, you've got your plan for who your working group members are going to be, what kind of disciplines you're going to need for the subject of for the equipment that's going to be analyzed. Okay, so there you have it. Oh, I'm looking. This thing says can't post comments to some destinations. Oh, rats. Well, I don't know. Well, no, it looks like you can post comments. Okay, let's see. Okay, Raid, he's watching from YouTube, and he says, any recommended reference for those common reliability terms related to RCM? Raid, yes. You can go to many places. Okay, let's see. Raid, I have a free online RCM course. If you go to, you see this URL right here, rcmtrainingonline.com/subscribe. If you go there, and by the way, if anyone's watching, if you're not already on my list, if you subscribe, I'll give you email reminders of when I'm going live and when I'm doing maybe like a free webinar and stuff like that. But if you go to the same URL, but whoops, here we go, over here. If you go to the same URL, instead of subscribe, put overview, and you can log in and watch my free RCM training. And there are a lot of terms in there that are defined. The other thing is, I've mentioned this, I think it was day 1 or day 2, you can get a hold of SAE JA 1011. It's called Evaluation Criteria for Reliability Centered Maintenance Processes. It is the internationally recognized standard for RCM. It sets forth the criteria for what any RCM process must entail in order to be called RCM. This also defines a lot of those terms. So you can get that from SAE's website. It's SAEJA 1011. So you can Google that and get that. All right. So I think I'm looking at the comments. If you have any last comments or questions, do put it in, because otherwise that is all that let's see. I think some people can't post to LinkedIn. Rats. Okay, I'm just looking at that. Oh, if their profile is invisible. Okay, well, that's all right. If you're invisible, then you don't want your things to show. Okay. Well, I don't see any other comments or questions or thoughts. So that ends, that concludes what I wanted to talk about today. So again, if you're wanting to do RCM, start off small, make sure you do it the right way, and make sure you do it with the right people. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone who tuned in today. And I'll be coming back again live sometime. If you have any topics about reliability-centered maintenance that maybe you'd like me to talk about more, then please do. You could send me a message through LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, rcmtrainingonline.com, and you can go to the contact tab, and you can maybe send me something if you have an idea for a topic for live. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.